The reigning national champions in the Ohio State Buckeyes went 14-2 last year, 7-2, fourth in conference play. But they made the playoffs, they overcame their adversity, and they won it all. And now they enter 2025 as probably the preseason number 1 or number 2 team. Got a target on their back, but that's every year under Ryan Day in Ohio State. So looking at how they performed in 2024 and what they lose entering this year, what changes? Well, Chip Kelly's gone, replaced with Brian Hartline. Jim Knowles is gone, replaced with Matt Patricia. Only 3 starters return on defense: Caleb Downs, Davison Igbinosun, and Sonny Styles. And on offense, only a few starters for the whole year, because the offensive line kept rotating. They had some guys who started in the playoffs at the end of the year, but guys who've had full season starting experience that are coming back. You have Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate. You have technically incoming transfer Max Clare, but I didn't count Bo Atkinson on defense, so it's just a side note. I think he'll be an All-American this year. And then you have Tegra Shabola, and did Carson? Yeah, I think, Carson Hinsman, because Carson Hinsman came in after the tragic injury to Josh Simmons, who I think will ball out in the NFL. So really only 4 or 5 returning starters on offense as well. This is a team that traditionally has reloaded, traditionally I say, because in the new portal era, it's much harder to do that. We saw that with Georgia last season, where they went 11-3 and almost lost 3 games or even 4 games in the regular season. Ohio State has minus 310 odds to reach the college football playoff. Minus 310 odds. Are you that just is a testament to the faith that you should have in Ryan Day and the program that he has. See last season. I lean positive with Ohio State at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, the skill positions, and then the defensive backfield. I don't think linebacker and safety are going to drop off a lot, as some might expect. The Buckeyes have a lot of players on my All Big Ten team in the preseason, which that'll be released soon in a video format. I have Julian Sayin at quarterback, James Peoples and Bo Jackson at running back. C.J. Donaldson would have made it, but I think that the Big Ten stacked there, and Peoples and Jackson, as the year goes on, are going to get better. I have Luke Montgomery and Ethan Onenwa representing guard and tackle on the teams. Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Brandon Innes, and Mylan Graham there. I might add in Quincy Porter Jr. It's just, even though not all of them are going to play a whole lot, they're among the best of the best there. Before we resume this segment, please take a few seconds of your time to make sure you have liked the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for the channel and for any team podcasts and playlists linked in the description, and also comment your thoughts down below in the comment section and join my Discord server via the description. All of those things I just asked you to do are completely free, and they sign you up for things related to my channel, or they don't sign you up for anything. No cost to you, and all the benefit to you because we release daily college football content here on College Football with Sam. If you want to support the channel monetarily, sign up for a YouTube membership, or check any other links in the description for my merchandise store and Patreon page. Thank you very much, and let's get back to the segment. Max Clare and Will Kazmarek at tight end, Caden McDonald and Edric Houston at D tackle, Kenyatta Jackson Jr. and Bo Atkinson at edge, and keep in mind these teams are massive. I have more players per individual team and more teams in general for my all-conference teams. So it may come across like some teams are overrepresented in these videos. They're not. My teams are just that much larger. Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles at linebacker, Caleb Downs and Jalen McClain at safety, and then Jermaine Matthews Jr. and Devin Sanchez at corner. A bold prediction I have that I won't go over much because it's more of like an individual roster switch that I think could happen, is I think Devin Sanchez by the end of the year will be better than Davison Igbinosun, because Sanchez is a freak, and Igbinosun, while I think he has a lot of NFL traits, I wonder. He could be an All-American. He could also be someone they have to bench. So that's something to keep in mind. I think that the offensive line for Ohio State's a tad bit overvalued. By some, it's way overvalued, but in the national sense, I think it's a little bit overvalued. Good unit, probably not great though. In my estimation, You look at how they handled the college football playoff last year, and the moments where they were the weakest were the O-line against Notre Dame in the second half, against Texas for the entire game, and against Oregon and even Tennessee. The O-line wasn't the reason they were winning those games at all. It just wasn't. The fact that Ohio State has freak wide receivers, had a gamer at quarterback, and then Oregon and Tennessee thought they could line up man-to-man with shorter corners who would never face those receivers. That was the reason they owned both of those teams. Do not tell me they owned those teams because they, had to protect Will Howard for 6 seconds in the pocket or 5, or they had to run for 200 yards before the fourth quarter was over. Don't do that. Regardless of all those things, they're so talented, and in their weak positions, they're good. So this team can go 12-0. And the absolute worst outcome with a billion injuries is probably, I would say, 8-4, but I don't even think that's realistic. I'm just including it just in case injuries happen, and then it happens, and it's like, well, yeah, in the new era, if Georgia last year could go 8-4, and honestly, if everything went wrong for them in terms of close games, could have gone 7-5 in some universe, then Ohio State can maybe go 8-4 if everything goes wrong for them. I think 9-3, though, is that realistic floor. And with their schedule, Texas is who you open up with week 1. Tough outing, but it's at home, and that's a really good thing. Week 2, they host Grambling State. Week 3, they host Ohio. They're favored to win the Big Ten with plus 195 odds, and their over-under win total's 10.5 preseason. They travel to Washington week 5, host Minnesota week 6, travel to Illinois and to Wisconsin in back-to-back road games in week 7 and 8, get a bye week 9 before hosting Penn State week 10, playing at Purdue week 11, hosting UCLA week 12, Rutgers in week 13, and then they travel to Michigan in week 14. The 15th toughest Big Ten conference schedule. It's much tougher than that once you factor in Texas, because Texas is the hardest non-conference game by a mile any Big Ten team has to play. They bring back 48% of their production. They're ranked in S&P Plus by Bill Connolly, 29.5 in the preseason, which is first. My Ohio State prediction here is kind of a bold one. I say kind of because I think in the new era of college football, it's harder for everyone to reload. I genuinely believe that. And then I also think that this schedule, it's easier than some may think, but I also think it's harder than some may think. I think that Ohio State is going to go either 10-2 or 9-3. And I'm siding with 9-3. Honestly, the tiebreaker for picking Ohio State to go 9-3 and barely miss the playoffs is the Michigan game. I think that when you look at how this team is built, I think that they are gettable in a way that previous Ryan Day teams, besides the 2021 team, weren't, in terms of a team like Illinois or Wisconsin or Washington can play them close and maybe pull off an upset. And I think Texas and Penn State roster-wise are bad matchups for them. I think that they can do enough through the air, especially on defense, but on offense, and then enough on the ground on both sides of the ball too, to where I think they can game control Ohio State a little bit. And then for Michigan, Ohio State should beat Michigan this year. They should. They're better, but they were better as an overall national championship caliber team in 2021. They were probably that same thing in 2022, and they were infinitely better last year. And Ohio State loses more on the D-line, and they haven't recruited as well as Michigan on the O-line. They haven't, and they don't have as much experience at running back either. And their quarterback isn't going to be as mobile. Like, everything that points to how Michigan has won the game in previous years is heightened compared to last year. So what indication that Ohio State is going to win that game or even earn a guaranteed win? Smith promised to win, but players do that all the time, so I don't fault him for that. What tells you that Ohio State should win here confidently? I'm not confident Michigan's going to win either. I'm not. The reason I think Ohio State's more likely to lose there than win is because I've seen Michigan do this over and over and over again in the game. And they prioritized getting D-tackle transfers and D-line transfers, even though they didn't lose as much there as Ohio State did, and they've developed better there than Ohio State did. So the formula for winning the game favors Michigan now more than it did in 24 and 23. Not nearly as much as it did in 22 and 21. And for anyone who's going to clip this and say I'm calling Ohio State soft, that's not what I'm doing. I'm not even calling Michigan tough either. I'm just saying on the road with Ohio State, if they even have one loss, the pressure will be back on Day, because that's how the job at Ohio State is. What has changed? That's my question. This team almost lost 4 games last year. They had 2 close wins over a bad Nebraska team and a Penn State team that played with its food against Ohio State. The loss to Oregon was not really bad at all. Long trip on the road. Oregon played an A-plus game there, stole a possession. Don't really fault they for that. And then they had the Michigan loss. And then in the playoffs, they had 2 dominant wins, but the win over Texas wasn't dominant. It was a double-digit win because of a defensive touchdown and a busted play. And then against Notre Dame, they almost had a dominant win. But again, a little bit of inconsistency there. Ohio State was much closer to 23 Michigan than they were to 20 Alabama or 19 LSU. And 23 Michigan didn't lose 2 games. So I think that they're due for a bit of a step back, Ohio State is. I think that 2026 is a year for this team to really explode and have another year like I think they did in 2024. Because Day runs, I think, the best culture in college football, or certainly something close to it. So when people look at this and they're saying, oh, you're picking Ohio State to lose 3 games, it's very bold. That's my hellfire take. It's one of the hottest takes I have for this year, is that Ohio State misses the playoffs due to losing 3 regular season games. A lot of that has more to do with Day's problem with Michigan, and especially with Penn State and Texas and who I think they are rather than who I think Ohio State is. I think Ohio State will certainly be a top 10 team, if not top 5. In fact, I would say definitely top 5. I'd probably peg them 5th off the top of my head. And then you look at it, and if they hosted Alabama week 1 and then hosted Oregon week 10 instead of Texas and Penn State respectively, I'd pick them to go 11-1, and they'd get a home playoff game. I might even pick them to go 12-0, because I feel like the more wins Ohio State enters in the Michigan game with, there's probably less pressure on Day, and that probably helps a little bit. But this team last year was not close to invincible. They weren't. They weren't 20 Alabama or 19 LSU, or certainly not 0-1 Miami. And they lose a bunch, and they change coordinators, and the meta of the game currently is game control. It's chewing clock, and Ohio State can do that. I mean, Washington did it in 23 with a run game that was questionable and awesome receivers, but that takes a lot to do, especially with a younger quarterback. So I think this team's going to be good, and if they reach the playoffs, they're certainly winning a first-round game. But 9-3 is what I peg them with. I think that my mild prediction for them is they'll have the best receiver group in America, wide receiver plus tight end. That's easy. I think that's a guarantee. Medium is many parts of this team that are expected to improve or reload won't match expectations. But the contrast to that, and I think it's a hotter take, is that linebacker and safety won't drop off at all as a collective unit. Safety will drop off a bit, because I think that Hancock and Ransom were studs. But Downs will probably improve a little bit. I think Guerreri's a really good coach, and linebacker definitely will improve. It's the same depth, if not much deeper. I just don't know much about their third string or second string. And with Patricia wanting to run sets with 2 or 1 more linebacker than Knowles did, that's something that we're going to see very early, I think. But I think Arvell Reese is going to be much better than Cody Simon, and I think he'll be better even than Sonny Styles. My Scorching take is that this will be the best wide receiver core in Buckeye history this year. Now, that's Scorching because you had the 2021 group that was just amazing, and all of them got picked in the first round. So even though you have Jeremiah Smith, I don't know quite yet if Innis and Graham are going to be high-level first-rounders, and Tate is projected to be, but it's not a guarantee. Nothing's a guarantee. So we'll just have to see how that goes. And again, I already told you my Hellfire pick. Ohio State can certainly prove me wrong. I don't even think necessarily that I am doubting them, if I'm being honest. Maybe I am, But I've said before, and I'll say it again, with schedules that have multiple big games, and Ohio State has 3 of them. If you think Illinois is going to be really good, then they probably have 4. With big game schedules, 9-3 is the new 10-2. It just is. And in the 16-team playoff era, well, I'd be picking Ohio State to make the college football playoff. And power ratings-wise, they'll be a top 5, top 10 caliber team. I just think there are certain things that align this year that will cause them to lose 3 games. They'll definitely win their bowl game, I think. And then they'll come back in 2026 with a storm. Thank you for watching College Football with Sam. Make sure that you've liked the video, subscribed to the channel, hit the notification bell for the channel and team playlists and podcasts in the description, joined the free Discord server where we talk college football 24/7, and have commented your thoughts down below. Check out the description for any ways you can support the channel monetarily. Everything else I've asked you to do is completely free, and your support means the world to me. We're trying to become the next big thing on college football YouTube. 6-figure subscribers, maybe 1 million one day. I think we can do that. And also check out any videos or playlists, anything in these columns right here, where there will be videos and playlists. Yeah, you get the point. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next one.